All right. I think we are good to go. Just checking my audio settings and making sure everything on the audio side is coming through. And I think we could switch over to the Beatbox stream layout and get started. Change my caption here. All right, I think I'll do what I did on the last one of these, where I set up a real simple BGM loop to do sort of an intro so it's not dead silence while I'm talking, and kind of explain what I want to focus on for today's jam stream, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So maybe something like... I'll put that about there. So it seems like it's been a few weeks since I did one of these. I think the last one was before I left town. But I need to sort of remember what I was working on then. Hey, Sour Lad's here. What's up, Sour Lad? How are you doing this Sunday afternoon, evening, morning? We are just getting started. I try and figure out what I want to do and work on today for the jam stream. Hey, Core Breaks here. What's up, Core? Welcome to the jam stream. I hope your Sunday is going well too. Sourlad says mentally tired. I feel that, man. Fortunately, we don't have to think very hard here on the jam stream. So what I wanted to focus on today is probably going to be a mix of practice things, maybe sort of an update on some of the tech and sound theory stuff we've talked about in previous streams, and maybe a little more emphasis on some pattern construction, since we haven't really talked about that in a minute. And I definitely want to spend at least half or so of the stream today working on some BGM track ideas. Core says, feeling pretty good, actually. I started new medicine. It's doing wonders for my mental health. Well, that's really good. I think that's very constructive, and hopefully means overall you're feeling a lot better. Hey, Iconic's here. What's up, Iconic? Welcome to the jam stream. We're just getting started here, so like I told the others, hope your Sunday's going well. And let me know if you guys have trouble hearing me. I think all my settings are good. I'm going to probably use this exact same setup next time we do salt table sessions. That way I have more control over my volume and I won't be absurdly soft compared to everybody else on the call. That I was not happy about that because it sounded kind of bad. My apologies. All right, looks like we got thumbs up in the chat for audio levels. Very good. I'll be keeping an eye on. I should move OBS over here so I can see it. I'll be keeping an eye on the audio readout, and I'm doing certain sounds just to make sure I'm not completely peaking the mic on some of them. Let's see. Let's turn this off. So to start off, we will be working on just some warm-up stuff so I can get some blood flowing in my face. Unlike previous jam streams, I did not wake up an hour or half an hour before the stream, but I do need to warm up still. That way I can get sounds to come out consistently and I'm not having to run through stuff cold. And that's going to be kind of a mix of basic sounds and also basses themselves. And then from there, we'll segue into sort of like the update on sound theory and technique stuff that I've been working on. It's in the time since our last jam stream. I have been practicing a lot of stuff. And it's good to always sort of do like a status update on different things that I'm working on, just so you guys can see progression too. Core Break says, "Is your hair blue IRL? I want my hair to be blue." Well, I'm an alien in a human body. And so my human body mimics exactly what you see here on the internet broadcast. And if you tuned into some of the drawing streams in the past, you might have seen what my alien race from Homeworld looks like. But I do want to do something with that in the future. Of course, says, "Oh right, and we're the Space Bees." Yep, that's the name I collectively coined for all of you, which you can blame Wazzy for part of that, since she made bees such a running theme here. But yes, you folks are the Space Bees. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I think I'll just run through some basic patterns and keep an eye on the audio, because this will be a good sound check opportunity. And then after I get enough of a warm-up done, then we'll move into the sound theory discussion. I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants today because I didn't prepare anything in advance, but that's all right. So let's get started. All right. One day, I keep saying I'm going to do it as part of a challenge, and I'd probably have to plan a little bit more for it. But at some point, I want to do like an endurance challenge in beatboxing where I set the timer and see how long I can keep improvising and freestyling a beat until I either physically have to stop or I run out of ideas. But the whole point of doing all that stuff is to exercise the face and get the face warmed up just like any other muscle when you're exercising or doing anything strenuous. In beatboxing, like we've talked about, being able to do certain sounds really does hinge on having your face muscles warmed up, and that's not really something I would have expected when I was first learning. But like a good example, and this is sort of an intro into sound theory in the discussion today. One of my favorite snares that we've covered numerous times on these jam streams is the BGM or spit snare, right? It's one that sounds like a clap and sounds like, be careful with that one, it's loud. That one is difficult to do cleanly and crisply, completely cold, because it requires a lot of pressure from the lips and control. So you probably heard one of the early beats I was doing, and I worked in the BGM snare a little bit, but it was coming out kind of soft. It sounded more like a pop, still kind of crispy, but not super sharp. And that's because my lips need to be warmed up. And you can either do lip oscillations, because that forces a lot of blood into your lips really quick, or just keep running through beats to get everything warmed up. So in the beginning, the spit snare is coming out kind of like a little bit softer, not quite as punchy. But after warming it up, and it'll probably get better as we sort of proceed. But now, after I gave my face a few minutes to warm up, doing the spit snare now sounds like not quite where it normally is, but definitely better. And being able to do rapid spit snares like a much easier once you're warmed up versus when you're completely cold. And so that's why you start with something a little more basic, get the blood flowing, makes it a lot easier. And I see we have 2 hydrate reminders. Thank you. We're going to go through a lot of water today, folks. Going back in the chat, Core says, does it also warm up your vocal cords? Yes. So basses specifically are very sort of strenuous and put a lot of strain on the vocal cords, depending on the type of bass you're doing, rather. So you heard me doing throat bass, which is probably the easiest one to do cold, and that's just the higher up in the throat, but still kind of tight. We've talked about the technique of kind of forcing air through your vocal cords and getting that reverberation. That one comes out cleaner the more you warm it up, but it's kind of the easiest way to warm up because you don't have to do any weird techniques or anything a little unorthodox just to get the sound to come out once you know how to do it. And so you heard me mixing up the throat bass just in different parts of the beat, like the that type of sound. And you hear me kind of dropping it down a little as part of the warm-up, because when you lower the throat bass and sort of relax your vocal cords and let them reverberate, that's how you get vibration bass for hitting really low bass tones. And that takes warm-up. I can't do vibration bass cleanly unless I warm up a little bit. And so if we compare the higher throat bass to a vibration bass and drop it, it would go. Still needs to be warmed up a little. Let me raise my mic up. But the really low reverberating vocal, quote unquote, vocal bass, vibration bass, that's one of my favorites. But it does take some time to warm up. Just like when you're singing, any sort of high strain type of technique for basses, you got to warm up a little bit. It's very difficult to do cold unless you're really, really practiced at it. Iconic says, be right back. Cora says, yeah, while listening, I tried doing it myself and came out sounding like Kermit the Frog. So if you're trying to do throat bass specifically, I was thinking about this the other day because I figured at some point folks who tune into these jam streams might want to try experimenting and learning techniques in beatboxing and whatnot. And so for describing throat bass, because I think that's one of the easier vocal type basses to learn, but the technique is kind of weird. Either that one or maybe vocalized chest bass are kind of the ones that don't require a lot of conditioning initially just to get the sound to come out. To get the sound to come out cleanly, that requires a lot of practice and conditioning. But for a throat bass, if you practice humming, and I'm going to experiment with a couple different approaches, and if this works for anybody, then that'd be good feedback for me in case I ever teach other people in the future. I'm really not an instructor when it comes to beatboxing. But throat bass is kind of it's melodic. It's like a type of singing. If you want to compare it to a real world type of singing, it's like Mongolian throat singing. In fact, it's identical in technique, just used differently. Like if you've ever seen bands like The Who or other types of Mongolian throat singers, you have that kind of that's a little bit lower, close to my range for vibration bass, but that resonance in the throat is the same technique as beatboxing throat bass. Hey, Iconic's back. All right. And so to kind of break down the technique, if you just try and hum a note from your throat and sing it, not like humming it through your nose. So if you just do like a and just sing a flat note again from your lungs, from your throat, and hold the note. If you tighten your throat a little bit and sort of force the part of your throat where the sound's coming out a little bit lower than just a regular sung note, you would go from and it's pushing down a little, not toward the middle of your throat. It's a little bit tough to sort of specifically pinpoint where, but if you do that and then you get that rattling vibration and resonance, that is throat bass. And what you do is just practice getting the pitch to bend to that point to where you can get it comfortably to come out. Then once you know where that sort of spot in your throat is, practice on getting it to come out from that point from then on, if that makes sense. So you first have to find it. And then once you find it, you kind of learn to get back to that point through muscle memory. And then once you can do that, then it's just a matter of practicing and getting the sound to be clean. And it's going to tickle your throat. And if you practice it for a while and your throat gets really sore or raspy, stop before you hurt your voice. Usually half a day or so to recover, or have some water and honey, but do not stress any of the throat sounds. That's really important, folks. Every beatbox teacher you learn from will tell you the same thing. When you practice, as soon as you start to get pain, just stop, come back to it later, give your throat some time to rest, and it'll be easy to pick up and keep going. And over time, you get the conditioning and your throat gets used to it, and you can do it for longer and it won't really hurt. But in the beginning, it is going to feel weird, and just make sure you have a lot of water on hand. Just take a break and then, come back to it later. But throat bass is fun because once you learn how to do it and you get sort of the technique, you can put all sorts of variations on it simply by changing slight positions in your mouth. And we can talk about basses today. It's been a little while. So we talk about the technique, like Corebreak and I are discussing right here. That resonating sound is coming out a little bit muted or distorted because I have my lips in like a tight ooh sound, and that's how you're getting a. That's my favorite variation of throat bass. But if you open up your mouth, it goes from to very similar to that throat singing thing I mentioned earlier. But just by playing around with the shape of your mouth, you can put texturing over that bass sound. And just by opening and closing your mouth, you get a wow 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 wow. And another variation that I think is kind of fun to do, I don't know if it has an official name because I don't see a lot of people use it, is if you block your airway with your tongue, don't seal it like you're cutting the airway off, but just put your tongue to the roof of your mouth and close the airway a little bit and block the sound and distort it. You get a. And if you tighten it a little bit and then open and close your mouth, you get an oscillation sound. It sounds like. And that's just putting your tongue up, and it completely changes the way the sound comes out. Hey, Edward's here. What's up, Edward? Welcome to the jam stream. We were talking about bass technique and sound theory. And so going along the idea of changing how just mouth position affects how the sound comes out, I think vibration bass is a pretty good example of how much that changes, at least for me. So for vibration bass, if you're dropping your throat bass and relaxing the vocal cords and getting that additional rattling and resonance is how you're getting the. And I got to put my nose up to the mic because my mouth is closed. The sound is coming out of my nose and just through my mouth essentially. But the. That's vibration bass. And mine loses a little bit of punch when I open my mouth, but you could still do it and apply the same distortion or texturing techniques with the sound by opening and closing your mouth, and you might get a. And that's just little ooh set type sound, forcing the air through, and you do that. For other sounds like vocalized chest bass, which to me puts a lot less strain on the chords because you're not using them to really sing so much as just putting out a note, and most of the distortion is coming from your chest. Using vocalized chest bass, you get the. And what I like doing with that one is closing the opening of my mouth very slowly to even tighter O sound, and I'm still practicing. I'm not super good at it yet, but doing that as the bass note comes out, you get a sort of resonating synth warble to it, which sounds really cool. And some of the talented folks in the scene that have been doing it forever, like Collapse is one who has a really good vocalized chest bass. It sounds like an actual synthesizer note. But if you're messing around with that texturing, you get a. Instead of just a whoa, 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 whoa. Closing the opening of my mouth is how I'm getting it to sort of vibrate a little at the end, and I'm trying to build that more. So it goes from a whoa, whoa, whoa to a whoa, whoa, whoa. Really cool bass sound. And you can even force it lower in the register. It's another thing I'm working on to get that even lower resonant type sound and slot that into beats. And like I can't remember which stream I mentioned it. You can also go super high with the vocalized chest bass for like a high synth, which is also pretty fun. And you do that just by sort of tightening your throat, and still you're doing the chest bass, but your note is much higher, and you're layering that together, and that's how you get the. the Marge Simpson noise. That's also a pretty good variation if you're trying to change the progression of which way the melody of your basses or your synth is going. And just a matter of changing notes, really. It's several steps above where the comes from, and it's really fun to play around with that. You just have to learn how to go from high notes to low notes, and that's the challenge. Core says, I really love listening to you make music with your mouth. It's really good. Ah, thanks, Core Break. I appreciate it. And I did see the stuff that you sent me a while back before I left town in Discord, and I am working on it, so just stay tuned. I will ping you in the near future. All right, so we're talking about bass theory, which again, it's a good topic of discussion. The elusive bass that is sort of like my unicorn, and my goal for 2022 is inward bass. And we'll probably dedicate part of a practice jam stream in the future to that one, because that's the hardest bass technique I have ever tried to learn. And I want to be able to talk about it a bit more once I actually know how to do it. But mark my words, in 2022 is my goal to be able to learn and become proficient at inward bass. I won't master it, and it takes forever to master sounds. But at some point in the future, we will be talking about that one. It is different from all the other ones that I've explained so far, which is probably why it gives me so much trouble. But soon. Trademark. Let's see. I think that was all really on my mind for bass. Feel free to drop questions in the chat if you folks have any other questions about anything. It doesn't have to be about what we're talking about. Anything related to beatboxing, feel free to always just stop me and ask. I don't mind. Moving on from basses for now, I wanted to spend some time talking a little bit about technicality. And this is sort of like our technicality checkup on developing sounds and things I've been working on. And while I was out of town a couple weeks ago, I was in a lot of noisy areas, and it was actually a really good opportunity to just practice and drill technicality because it was very noisy, and I have a mask on, so no one can see what I'm doing with my mouth or hear it. And doing things like TKK practice was really easy as I was walking around from busy spot to busy spot. And I don't think I've learned anything really new from the TKK pattern, but I'm still working on getting better at the speed chains and taking the and putting it together in a rapid fire looping chain. Still getting better at that. But I was able to sort of pick up a little bit of speed, and I learned something else, which is kind of an interesting double K. I don't think it's the official double K technique, but it is something I'm going to work on for technicality drills, just as a different way of doing sounds and doing it very quickly. So to sort of recap what we've talked about way in the past regarding technicality, the idea of stringing sounds into combos to just make chains of sounds that slot into patterns, which slot into routines. That's all what technicality is, and it doesn't have to be just speed sounds. But the one I've been working on and I really want to get good at is the TKK. Iconic says, jam streams are good vibes. Hopefully this is interesting, or at the very least, mellow background noise while you folks are out there doing whatever it is you do. More informative. I'd settle for informative too, for people who might not know things about beatboxing. But for technicality, the one I've been practicing is the TKK, the hat, and I do like to break this down every time just in case folks need a refresher or we have new people joining that have never heard of the techniques. So I apologize if it sounds like I repeat myself a lot, but we don't always have the same group of space bees here hanging out. And so I like to backtrack a little just to sort of explain and give context to what I'm covering in these sound theory discussions. So taking the T sound, hat, the K sound, not a snare, just a letter K without the A, no vocalization. So, and then the snare in the set is the rim shot, which is it is a breathless inward K to sort of make a super simplified explanation of the rim shot. But taking the and chaining them into a triplet pattern is how you get the TKK. And let's change our caption to just sound theory discussion, since we're pretty much past the intro and warm-up. Let's change that. Sound technique theory. Corbett says, yeah, it's informative and cool. Well, good. I do like talking about beatboxing, and the more I just discuss it out in the opening, the more it forces me to understand what it is that goes into all of the technique and theory and everything, and it makes me understand it better. Even if we're not doing a structured lesson where I'm teaching you folks, just talking about it makes it easier for me to understand, what it is that goes into all this stuff. So it's two-way benefit here. So we take our triplet sound chain, the TKK, put them together, and like we've talked about before, you start slow, just and practice it over and over until you get fast at it. But, and this is something that anyone here can practice too, you don't necessarily need to start with that set. In fact, I didn't learn that sound set at all in the beginning, even though it's the most common technicality pattern people learn. You can apply the idea of learning sound chains with anything to a point. Like, there's a caveat there, but you could do a TK K snare and practice technicality that way too. And it's a little bit different in technique, and we can take a sort of tangent to explain. But let's say you did the I think everyone here can just do a right? You could take those two sounds to start, and just when you're sitting there bored or you're working on something mindless, just practice two sound and practice it constantly and over, and you will find, just through muscle memory of doing the T sound and the K sound, you will get fast with it eventually. It's not a sound set I practice a lot on its own, but I've been kind of working with it lately because you can slot it into those patterns as just a two sound, and it works the same way. Your mouth muscles will over time get faster at it if you just practice. And it's a pretty cool intro into technicality without having to do any fancy snares or anything else. So just TK. Hey, Red Dragon's here. What's up, Red Dragon? How are you doing today? Hope your Sunday's going well. And so to demonstrate, again, this is for anyone curious about beatboxing that wants to learn how technicality works. Just T and K back to back over and over forever. It starts off slow, but the more you practice it I'd say if you practiced it maybe an hour or two collectively over the course of a day, and you did it for a week, you would see a big difference from day 1 versus day 7. And what the sound set sounds like, again, it's just and I would say don't open and close your mouth. Just keep your mouth in a neutral spot and just move your tongue, essentially. Keep that position and just practice it over and over again. Just and after you've been doing it for a while and your mouth gets used to it, it goes from just a 1 2 1 2 1 2. Let's see, how fast can I do TKs? You can go. That's not super fast, but that's about as fast as I could do it cleanly. And then you can get it be even faster than that, which would be an interesting challenge for anyone who wants to experiment with learning technicality. I can sort of do a quicker version that's a bit more squeezed in the tongue. It's like a And that's not necessarily the same type of technique, but you can use it in a beat the same way. You can do something like little bit sloppy, just as an improvised beat. But the idea of taking TK and just getting good with it is very, very applicable in a lot of beatbox technique. In fact, it's probably a good place most people should start, because anyone can make a T sound and a K sound. And learning how to get fast with it is just muscle memory and a good example of how technicality works. Core says, I can kind of do a simple beat using just my tongue. Yeah, you can definitely work in tongue-based sounds in between the T's and K's in that example there. Like, I guess you could do clicks. You might be able to do like that requires a bit more of a reset, but you could do something like that. I just go automatically to TKK by sheer habit. But you go like TK, click, something like that. But also practicing TKs gets your just K sound cleaner too, because it helps for everything else. And then you could graduate to like a K snare later, an outwards K. So you could do something like that's harder for me to do because I don't normally do outwards Ks and speed patterns, but you could do it that way. And so going back to the original thing that started the discussion of technicality, TKK is the one that I've been working on. It's about as fast as I can do before it starts to get unclean, and it's getting better. Again, doing drills for almost a week straight in noisy environments definitely helped. But you can also sort of practice as you get the muscle memory down, taking that TKK sound and slotting in the patterns, because normally you're not just going to be doing a triplet pattern in a vacuum, right? You want to be able to put it into a beat and be able to utilize that rhythm in a way that's going to allow you to make something that sounds cohesive. And so I was experimenting around different permutations of technical sounds with that TKK and just sort of playing around with what fits together easily and that I can do. And so like one, I'm going to try and sound it out and then explain it, because I'm kind of doing it backwards here. But if we were to take the sound and slot it into a beat, something like and I still am learning how to space out breaths in between weird patterns like that. But adding in kicks and other things, or even like a TKP, which is the first technicality pattern I learned, taking that and then chaining it together with that is where the whole creativity aspect of technicality comes in. And that's been sort of fun to sort of say, okay, this sound set works better than this, or I can flow from this one to this one easier. And hopefully I can start putting that into routines instead of just, practicing chunks of sounds here or there. But eventually I'll be able to do the roll or the looping TKK faster and cleaner for longer. But that's just practice. Sometimes I'll be sitting there doing like cleaning or nothing interesting, or I'll be on a call for work and have my mic muted and I'm just sitting there going and hope I never unmute myself by accident or have a lot of explaining to do. But technicality is going to continue to be a work in progress. I will report back in the future when I feel like I've made some more progress and leveled up that particular technique a bit more. So let's see, keeping an eye on the clock. Before we get over to BGM, I did want to just spend some time doing pattern practice and construction, sort of an extension of the warm-up. And this is not going to be really structured. So I'm just going to kind of run through some different sound combinations and patterns and see what sort of kind of emerges. And then we'll segue from there to BGM brainstorming, and that will be the focus of the rest of the jam stream today. So I'm just going to sort of start freestyling random stuff as it pops into my head. Again, folks in chat who are listening, feel free to ask any questions, or if you want me to explain a specific sound you heard in one of the beats, just drop any questions and we can take a pause and talk through them. So let's see, where should we start? Maybe we'll start a bit slower and then work our way up to faster stuff. I'm gonna see how long I can sort of freestyle things before I have to either talk to a question or take a drink of water. So let's see. Switch. Hey, Eric's here. What's up, Eric? Eric asks, "Are you beating those boxes, old man?" The boxes never knew what hit them. They have been beaten into submission. And that last freestyle beat there was trying to get my siren inward lip roll to come out, and it was not coming out for some reason. The regular inward lip roll just sounds like no sort of high pitch. The siren one that I sort of like to do, the variant has the high to low, the I guess it's just more of a practice in the middle of a pattern, since the position to do it is just raising the tongue up to get kind of a almost like a cat hissing sound, but combining that with that tongue position is how you get it to go from high, and then you just drop your tongue down. That's how you get the there we go. That's one of my alerts. I don't remember which one. Might be the raid one. You also heard me mixing up the sort of low sub bass loose inward lip roll too, which is also pretty fun. I don't know how well it comes across on this type of mic, but with a subwoofer sound system, if you do that on mic, that shakes things. It is very, very loud and super low. Anything with a low range amplification will absolutely shake, and that's a pretty fun one to do. So you heard me doing like the that's a fun one. Eric says, I'm looking for a 4-member team for making a Pokemon Rangers mission online. I am not familiar with Pokemon Rangers, but I really don't play a lot of Pokemon, so that's probably why. All right. I thought about doing another 10 minutes of just freestyling practice, but I think I'd rather roll the time into BGM brainstorming. That way I can take suggestions from you folks on things like style and sound construction. So let me grab my chair so I can sit down, rest my feet, and then we will spend the rest of the stream today talking about BGM ideas with the loop station here. So let me go grab my chair. All right. Fix my camera. Get everything in line so you can see me and hear me. All right, perfect. And it'd be nice if I could prop my loop station up so I could see the screen a little bit better. Let me do that. I really need a stand for this thing. That'll work. Edward says, it still surprises me when you revealed that you're standing the whole time. I find it's easier for me to do beatboxing when I'm standing up because it's easier to breathe. I can do stuff sitting down perfectly fine, but kind of like I can't sing when I'm sitting down. It's just easier for me to be standing up when I'm doing dedicated, actual beatboxing. For stuff like the loop station, I'm not doing anything that requires a lot of breathing usually, so it's fine if I'm sitting down for that. But for all of the dedicated beatboxing stuff, it's just easier to breathe when I'm standing up. I don't know if you guys can tell a difference, but yeah, I usually do that for the first part of the stream. All right. So we have a blank loop loaded here. What I wanted to do something a bit more. Actually, let's change our caption before I forget again. call this BGM brainstorming. I want to start with something that's a bit more mid-tempo, and I want to experiment with some recorded synth-type sounds that aren't necessarily using the loops presets. I know there's a synth setting, and it was kind of bugging out on me last time I tried it, but we don't necessarily need it to make simple synth sounds. So like we always do, I want to set up a bass rhythm or percussion or drum line essentially for the song. I just realized my model is scaled a bit smaller than usual. There, that's better. I don't know why I had me so far in the background. But the original rhythm I was playing around with in my head earlier, before the stream, I was thinking about stuff to roll into the BGM, was maybe something that sounded kind of like, not necessarily a break beat, but kind of a more funk, pop, hip-hop-ish type beat. And the rhythm I came up with would be something like a... And I could do a one measure repeat of that and then see how it captures. And then maybe layer in some other things like hats. I know one of our last sessions, we kind of made a no hat or a little hat beat, but we can mix stuff in and layer it onto the percussion track before we move on to other things like synths and basses. And so I want to experiment a little bit and try and come up with some different types of sounds than what I've done in the past. So let me see if I can get the beat recorded. We'll see how it sounds in playback and then add to it. Corbreak says Tiny Raku. Yeah, it looked kind of weird if someone joined the broadcast, the stream, and they just saw a really scaled back model not really talking. But I think we're good. So let me see if I can get this recorded. Oh, I think I missed a kick at the end to loop the tail of that. We want... Yeah, there's an extra kick at the end, then I gotta time it so that it loops cleanly. So let's try that again. Closer, still off by like a millisecond, but the right number of kicks was there that time. There we go. How's this on playback? If I get the fader about 70%, 70-80%, you folks should be able to hear it. Now we can try and layer on additional snares. We can try and layer on hats. We can play around with a lot of different things on just the percussion line here before we move on. So I kind of wonder what happened if I added a K snare, a sharper snare on top of the PF. So it's like a double snare layered on top. And there's just two of them, so that should be easy to do. I think I missed the second one by a half second again. It's easy to fix. Let's try again. I think that'll work, but I'm going to back off from the mic and re-record that so that the K snare is a little bit more in the background. I don't want it to overpower the PF. You can still hear it, but they're sort of competing a little. So I'm going to undo that. And I'm gonna record it from a little further back and try and make it a little bit softer. So let's try that. There we go. So now you get that snap from the K, but it's sort of behind the PF snare, and now it's not over the top and overpowering it. Almost sounds like just like a finger snap. So now let's see about hats. I was thinking an eighth note hat run. So like just in the background. We could try that, and then if it doesn't sound good, we could just undo it and take it off. I think that's functional. There's a little bit of a fade towards the middle. It kind of sounds like it's backing off, but then it comes back in and the rhythm doesn't break. That was the one thing I was worried about. If I mistime the hats by a slight amount, if it would essentially desync and sound like it was like a regular rhythm. Okay, so I think that'll work. I was thinking, as I was putting down the bass rhythm here, we could also double up on the kicks and try and give like a lower bass punch for the kicks. You could either do a throat kick like a, or try and go guitar to bass and do like another amplified lower end kick. I need to make this louder in my ears so I can hear what it's doing. I'm gonna try to do throat kick first. So that's gonna be I need to make sure I don't do too many kicks. Let's see. I might have to do this more than once. That sounds like it's layered, but it doesn't sound like it's synced. I don't dislike the way it sounds. Instead of it being synced, it's like there's an additional bass note underneath the beat, which is not what I intended. But if we think of it like an additional sound, that's not terrible. Like, I don't dislike it. It's just not what I was trying to do. I can't take it off because I recorded one layer too high. I wish it was a little bit softer, but that's not unusable. And I'm going to save this before I make any other mistakes I can't undo. Edward says, how about a type hi-hat on the beats before the snares? So let's see if it was like, you're talking about if it's the second kick, have it on the kick. I'm trying to think of how that would slot in the rhythm. It would be like something like that. That might be easier to do on another layer or another track. Let's see. I think I get it. Let's see where we can place it. Is that what you're talking about, Edward? This is kind of what I was envisioning based on your suggestion there. Which actually does sync with the 8th note hat run pretty cleanly. I figured that would take at least 2 tries to do. Iconic says great stuff. So far, so good. Edward says, not what I was thinking of. I'm assuming the actual open hat snare would be in between another set. Let's see. Or more like a, I don't know if that's considered a syncopated or just offset rhythm. So if it's, I can't do all the sounds at once just out of my mouth in beatboxing, but I'm trying to think of where else the open hat snare would go. So if it's, so that after this, I have it right now on this in between the first and second kick. Yeah, it's sort of offset in a different spot. But were you talking about something like a more offbeats, or it would be like kind of difficult for me to do the rhythm and the thing at the same time, so I'm trying to just do like the the lead up to where the snares are and move where the hat's going. And I'm not a drummer. I'd probably be able to do that easier if I was a percussionist. But I guess earlier or later in the beat than where the hat is now. That's the easiest way for me to think about it. Earlier or later. Because I think it sounds fine where it's at, but obviously you're thinking about placing it elsewhere. Because you could have something like a and just a straight 4/4 type signature that's with offbeats. Again, you can take the hat and move it all over the place, and it'd probably still sound fine depending on where you're going. I wonder what that sounds like reversed. Huh. Taking the reverse effect and putting that on the open hat, that's kind of interesting. It sounds like record scratches or record cuts. I think that could be something we use too. I'm going to leave that on track 2 for now. Let's save this. And we can always take it out if we want to put something else in there too. But now let's think about adding a bass line. I like to go rhythm bass synth or miscellaneous other sounds just because it's easier for me to construct things that way. So if we take our bass beat, now we need to think of a good kind of, like Iconic says, a funky rhythm or bass progression to pair with this thing. I have an idea. This is something from an old beat idea I thought of a long time ago. 3-note progression going upwards. 1, 2, 3. 2 notes, and then step up. And then it cuts off. So I'm going to turn on guitar to bass. And again, this is like a electric string bass type sound I'm going for here. Let's see if we can get it. It's going to go 1, 2, 3, and it's going to be held on the 3rd note. So I'm going to turn on guitar to bass and noodle around with this a little bit, and we'll see what happens. All right, Edward says, like in the impeach the president beat I sent you is what I was thinking. I still have that in our Discord. I can go listen to it real quick. Let's see. Give me 1 second. You won't be able to hear what I'm listening to, but this will just take a sec. Oh, I see. That's essentially one hat in the middle. So the way I heard that rhythm would be like. This is the slight variation on that original song's rhythm, but it would be like. How would that fit into what we're doing here? Let me listen to this one again. Let's add the hats that I have here. Yeah, with a 1 measure repeat, I could add in an open hat near the end. So it'd be like 1 open hat towards the middle, I think, and then it loops. That would probably be the closest that I could get to that rhythm, because it's not the same tempo. It's a little bit faster. But I could try. And I can redo this, so it should be alright. Here, let me get the volume up a little bit. And actually, even if this wasn't what you're talking about, Edward, having that open hat snare in there does sort of vary up the rhythm a little bit. I do like the way that sounds, where it slots in right now. And I think if we add the other offsets hats I was doing before. I think it's gonna be too many hats. Yeah, I would opt to keep the rhythm like I have it now with that additional open hat slotted in, and then take this other one off. And again, even if it wasn't exactly what you're talking about, I like the way it fits into the rhythm. It gives it a little bit more variation. And I don't think I've done that on a beat yet. Let's see. Here, I'll boost the fader up a little bit so you guys can hear the results. And with the bass line, we'll stop this. This, save. And from the top. Iconic redeemed hydrate. Roger that. Edward says, can you pan the different sounds? I can when I'm recording them. I can't break apart the panning of a single track, like for just the rhythm. I can't break apart the instruments that compose that sound, but if I wanted to pan the bass, I can. So like, I think everything's center. Let's take a look. I haven't really messed with that too much. Yeah. And I don't know if this is going to play back on the broadcast. I think what I've done is I've panned it to the right. It says R01. Let's see if we go. Yep. So what I've done, I don't know if you folks can hear this because I don't know how OBS transmits sounds that are being played this way. But right now, for the bass, it's only in the right side. I'm taking my headphone off the left side. You can only hear it on the right. So this is basically balance. I need to get better at learning how to pan stuff. Okay, Edward says, nope. I think it's because OBS's sound channeling is mono for this type of mic. Or for the loop station. Let me see if I can fix it on the fly. I don't know if this will work, but let's try it since I've never done that before. I'm going to keep the panning on the right side of my headphones. Let's see if this works. I had it on mono channel before. For people that are wearing headphones, if I take that off, can you hear the bass on one side? Here, I'll boost the bass up a little bit louder just for this here. Edward says, now I hear it. Okay, I have to have it set to mono because of my other sound setup. When it's hooked in through my Scarlett for non-beatbox type stuff, because of the way the channeling works on that, I have to set it to mono, otherwise you'll get sound on only one side. But for Loop Station, I can take it off. I'm going to turn it back on for the sake of the exercise here, but that is interesting. I've never looked at that before. So yeah, Edward, thanks for confirming that's how OBS's sound setting works. It's back on mono now, so you should only hear it in one channel. I'm gonna put the bass line back on center. But in addition to the per track or per loop settings for where we assign the sound, there's actually a pan input effect too, which I don't use a whole lot. Let me see if I can put it on input C here and kind of demonstrate. Again, I don't think you'll hear it because of the mono channel. In fact, I'll leave it up. We'll experiment for this. I'll take it off and just remember to put it back on later. Let's see, where's pan? Okay, pan effect. I'm gonna record like a real simple kind of noodly synth type sound. I'm gonna use pan so I can actually see how it changes the sound. I don't really know how pan works. Let's see. If I'm doing this, just speaking in with the input effect on, it sounds like it's panning around my headphones. Let me try and record something, then I can listen to it on playback and see. Okay, I'll do something like that, but I'll turn pan on. Now, in my headphones, I can hear that sound moving all around me. It's going like left, left, right, left. It sounds like someone is circling around behind me from ear to ear, making that noise. The question is, if I turn that off, are you folks able to hear the way the pan changes the sound? It's not super intense because I only have it up to like 60%. If I put up to 100, how does that change? Oh yeah, that causes it to bounce like crazy. So if I turn it to up to 100, just when I'm talking, you should be able to hear me like ping-ponging from different sides of your audio channel. But if I record that same synth that way, it'll probably sound a lot different. Let's try it. Ow, 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 ow. Ow, 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 ow. Oh, if I turn pan on, that would help. Ow, 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 ow. 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 Now you can hear it ping-ponging basically back and forth between left, right, and center. What I really would like is for that to be using a bit more of the synth preset. But if I really want to stick with this type of sound, I can re-record it so it sounds a little more synthy. This is literally just me making that noise, but I could start taking get a bit more of like a tongue distortion and get it to sound more like a synthesized note. Like that. But this is an extreme example of having pan up all the way. Interesting. Another input effect and track effect that I don't really use a whole lot is panning delay, which adds like an echoing. If I use that, you get a sound echo. In addition to the pan. So if we were to take that, I'm not gonna put that at 100%. We'll put it back to like 60. If we turn that on and then use the synth, it would greatly alter it. So let's try it. You can see how much the reverb and the echoing really affects it. We could probably turn it down and it might still be usable. What would it sound like at maybe 30%? That's kind of usable. Let me see if I can record something with that. I'm gonna put that up to 25. Yeah, I don't know if I'm entirely committed to putting that in there, but it is kind of neat to mess around with that. Or that's delay. That's not panning delay. This is panning delay. In addition to the echoing reverb, now it's moving around and throughout the different channels. So if I wanted to put a weird message into my BGM tracks, then I can use that to make it sound like a broadcast speaker shouting at you from all angles. But we won't do that. We could add I'm going to go back on mono before I forget to reset this. But nothing is panned into any other sound channels now, so it should be fine. I kind of want to... Maybe we can put a granular delay click type thing on here. That metallic clinking noise. And make it that same rhythm that we were doing for the synth. So I'm gonna mess around with that a little bit and we'll see what it sounds like. All right. So what I've done is I've taken that granular delay sound and I combined it with filter again because the regular one sounded okay, but I could change the pitch a little bit easier with the combination. And I actually like the way that sounds paired with the bass line and the rhythm. Iconic says, got to go now. Thanks for the stream. Everything is sounding great. Best of luck the rest of your stream. Thanks, Iconic. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out, dude. Hope the rest of your Sunday is awesome. And I will definitely catch you in the next one. Oh, we could take the reversed hi-hats that I deleted it. It was on track 2 and I deleted it off. But we could put that back on and then add those kind of quick cuts in between everything else. It'd be easy enough to re-record. I'm gonna try it. We drop it in the mix a little bit so it's not quite as loud as the main rhythm. That's not bad. It doesn't really sound like the same type of open hat as on the main rhythm. It sounds like kind of a wind sort of rushing by in reverse. That's pretty functional. So what we've got now, we've got 4 tracks in play. So we could think of any other additional sounds to add on the final open track, or yeah, the track on this loop. And I also want to look at some of the track level effects to see what we can do with this thing. This is beat repeat I'm messing around with. Toggling that off in different parts, on and off in different parts of the rhythm, creates kind of an interesting sort of stutter effect. And that's at 75%. I am not opposed to that as sort of a maybe second repeat way to mix up the way the sounds kind of cut. Doesn't have to be that long, even for just a second. That's interesting. Filter, I don't think I'm going to go filter on this one. That's just toggling lo-fi on, which, since it's fuzzing out everything on the entire mix, I don't know if I want to do that. I could toggle it on and off when just the bass line is going, since that gives the most pronounced distortion when you apply that effect. Let's do it like this. That's toggling between the real simple beat repeat stutter and then the lo-fi distortion on just the bass, and I'm basically toggling those effects on and off, which is kind of a lot to manage. I can also toggle on the beat repeat in just the part with the snare, and that's how you're getting the rapid fire stutter snare right there. I think I have a lot of options on how to sort of structure this with the track effects. Let's save all the progress so far. Looking at my loop, I'm on loop track or loop file 80, and there's 99. So I need to go back and clear off a bunch of the old loops that I've already recorded and put on things like the BGM or Stream Sounds collection. I need to make some room. I think I'll go back and definitely scrub the ones I'm not going to use. But I think a lot of those old set I'll have to make room for. Maybe I'll ask my beatboxing teacher if there's a way to just back up the data. That way I can copy it off and then just delete a whole bunch of stuff and make room. Because I'd rather not lose those just in case I need to get at them in the future. Edward says breakcore moment. Yeah, that sort of stuttering rapid fire thing is really handy to use with beat repeat. I don't think I've done that on a song so far. But let's think about the structure of this one before we move on. In the meantime, I've entertained suggestions for what to call this one while we're experimenting with the actual structure of the final. If you have any suggestions for title on this particular BGM track, start throwing them out. Let's see, we could start with bass. Don't do that super often. Maybe come with the reverse. Coming in with the synth. Cut it out. The real question would be where we're sort of starting the first and second half of the track. I'll have to think about that when I'm actually recording this, because I like the idea of having the stutter focusing on the hats, but I also like the idea of it every once in a while doing the rapid fire snare too. The timing's a little bit more specific on that. For those of you that remember CDs, there was a time when people listened to music on disc-based media, and when you were walking around with your CD player and you'd bump it too hard, it would start skipping. And this is what it would sound like. That's why it was great once they had MP3 CDs, which weren't reading off of the actual recorded media, like an audio recording. It's reading a file, like an MP3 player. Then you didn't have a problem with skipping anymore. That is your boomer moment here on the Raku BPM stream. I think having the track finish and outro the same way it started with just the bass line is the way to go here. I'll have to think about that. Maybe coming back from the repeat on the second half, we start with the beat, empty beat, bring in the distortion, synth, and then we bring everything at the end before we go to the outro. This is beat scatter pattern 4. Yeah, I've already used that on other things, so I don't think we would do that. This is with Slicer turned up to about 60%. It's a little bit erratic. Otherwise, I would say there's potential for it to break up the parts in the right way. Yeah, it sounds too hiccupy. That's ring modulator applied to the whole thing. A possible variation could be taking ring modulator and applying it to just the bass, but the whole thing just becomes really kind of muffled and distorted when you apply it to the entire series of tracks. That's definitely not good. Can't tell what chorus does. Alright, let's go ahead and stop the playback. I think we're good for this one. Before we sort of get ready to wrap up for today, I do need to figure out something to call that one. Maybe something to do with the bass since that's the prominent first part of the song. We could work in something with the sort of reverse sound effect. I think I have at least one or maybe two BGM or stream sounds tracks that have the word bass in the title. So I'll have to make sure I don't start repeating my titles. Let's see. I'll put the whole thing back in the background. We'll get ready to wrap up here. I need to head out in a little bit. Otherwise, I would have probably gone for another hour on maybe doing another track. But considering this one took a little bit more work, I am happy with the results of the overall structure of the track. I'm fine spending more time on one if it's going to be a better product at the end. We'll have to give some thought into what to call it when I eventually sit down to record these. It's not necessary that I have a name for it right now anyway. If I have time over the next week, my plan is to sit down and record a few more of the BGM tracks. And we're pretty close to having a full track list for the second BGM collection. But that one probably won't come out until I've had a chance to polish everything up a little bit, since Stream Sounds just came out recently. Maybe by the end of spring, we'll have everything for the second BGM collection ready. I'm thinking about commissioning some album artwork for that one. But we'll see. I'm shooting for 15 tracks. And I don't even remember how many I've got so far. I have 9 recorded. There's at least 3 or 4 on here, including the one we just did today. So we should be close. Maybe in a couple more jam streams, might have enough tracks ready for that one. But we shall see. So let us take a look at who is online to raid, and then we will wrap up today's jam stream. Let's see who's online. I see Zekos is online. Zekos is playing Elden Ring. Moo is online, and he has less people hanging out. Let's go raid Moo again. Moo is currently streaming Minecraft. We'll go say what's up to Moo again. Ah, Core Break. You came back just as we were getting ready to wrap up. The track you hear in the back is the sort of finished version of the BGM track that I was working on when you left. This isn't like the rehearsed, fully recorded version, but with all the different things in play, this is what it sounds like. And what I was asking before, and we can take a couple minutes to sort of kick around some ideas before we go and raid Moo. I'm taking suggestions for what to call this BGM track, and I'm gonna go run to the little Uraku's room and fry some chicken real quick. So if you want to let the track play, And again, for you, Edward, everyone else who's on, want to toss out some final suggestions for what to call this BGM track, then we can figure that out before we jump off. So I'll be back in 1 sec. All right. I am back. The core says Beatsmaster. Oh, I see Edward. Edward had the dad joke further up. Of course, Edward is our resident dad joke expert. I see Corbrick says like a play on the words of Beastmasters. That could be a good album title. Something that's going to sort of reflect everything. Usually when we name the tracks, specific tracks, we try and incorporate some sort of name that references like a gimmick or a specific theme for the actual track itself. Maybe something with pings because of the synth, that kind of metallic pinging noise. Corbrick says, when the album dropping? If you're talking about the BGM collection, the second one, I was talking about that before you jump back on. I'm shooting for 15 tracks before that one's done, and I'm currently at 9 recorded with 3 or 4 more, including this one. So it'll be a bit before the BGM album, or BGM Collection 2 drops. And I just put out Stream Sounds this month, or technically last month. Today's the 1st. And so probably maybe by the end of spring, early summer, the second BGM collection will be done. But in the meantime, feel free to check out Stream Sounds. I mentioned over on Twitter when that one came out in April, but it's over on Bandcamp, and you don't have to pay anything for it. You can download it for free. Just go to go to the page and put $0 in the field, and you can download the whole album for free and use it for content if you want. You don't have to ask permission. Just if you could mention me somewhere on your content, if you use it, then that's good enough. You know, I'm not gonna copyright claim or strike it, anything like that. Edward says something like a drummer with a bunch of arms, like Spider Drummer or something. That's not a bad idea. I'll be able to refer back to the VODs for this stream later when I actually do the recording. So I'll think of something that maybe incorporates a couple of the different suggestions for the track title. And Corbreak says, "Oh no, I want to pay. You're such a nice dude." Oh, that's really kind of you, Corbreak, but don't feel like you have to throw money at me. We just hang out here and just vibe. That's all I really ask. You don't have to throw money at me. All right, let's stop playback here. I'm gonna save this again, and let's get ready to go raid Moo. And make sure everything is good over here. Actually, I'm gonna go to the outro, but before I do, thanks once again, folks, for coming and hanging out. I'm hoping to plan the next one of these a little bit better so that I'm not having to run out the door and cut my stream short. But it was good talking with everyone about beatbox technique and theory, and I really do think this is a pretty fun BGM track. It took a little bit longer to make, but I'm happy with the results. And so that one's going in the collection. But until then, we will wrap up for today. I haven't decided if I'm streaming tomorrow. I might be doing a chill stream tomorrow. If not tomorrow, later in the week. But we shall see. I'll put a schedule up on Twitter before the end of the day today. Since now there's no longer construction here, I can plan out my days. So, once again, thanks for hanging out, folks, and I will catch you in the next one. Let's go raid the homie.